You are making the world a better place by listening to the Joy of Living podcast. This is your guide to achieving a more purposeful, powerful, and positive life. Join Barry Shore in unlocking the best version of you and becoming happier, healthier, and wealthier. And now, here's your ambassador of joy, Barry Shore.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking, so always looking for and finding the good. You found good in abundance because you've tuned in consciously and conscientiously to the Joy of Living podcast with your humble host, Barry Shore. And you tuned in to this show along with 404,822 people around the world. You tuned in for one reason and one reason only. It's the best reason in the whole world. You care the most in the whole world about you. Y-O-U, and you becoming the best you. And that's a wonderful thing because you know that on this show, we discuss the three fundamentals of life. And when you utilize these three fundamentals, you will be happier, healthier, and wealthier. We guarantee it. Now, the three fundamentals, of course, are number one, your life has purpose. And when you lead a purpose-driven life, number two happens. In this case, a good number two. You go MAD. Now, MAD is a wonderful acronym that stands for make a difference. You lead a purpose-driven life, you make a difference. It's what you're going to learn and share with our amazing friend and guest today, wonderful Alexander. And the third fundamental is to uncover the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms. Simple example, right now, as I said, you're joined by hundreds of thousands of people around the world, all using the internet. Now, if you ask anybody, what does www stand for? Invariably, it has to do with the internet. Factually speaking, they're correct. However, in our world, the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, www stands for what a wonderful world. And what is a word, right? W-H-E-T-A. Now, of course, a tip of the hat and a big thank you to Louis Armstrong, Satchmo, for enabling the wonderful song, What a Wonderful World, to go viral and not just touch tens of millions or hundreds of millions, but billions of people around the planet. Whenever you hear the opening bars of what a wonderful world, what do you do right away? You can't help it. You smile. Now, smile is one of the most important words you can internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life because smile stands for seeing miracles in life every day. That's right. Seeing miracles in life every day. Now, I must tell you, I am privileged to speak to people all over the world on webinars and in person. Recently, I spoke to a group of 1,127 people, telling you a story about Barry Shore, talking about seeing miracles in life. And some people raise their hand and say, hey, Barry Shore, I've been up for hours already. I haven't seen any miracles. And I asked them, are you here? Can you hear? Can you stand still? I can't do that. Can you walk? I can barely do that. You have water to drink. You have food to eat, a place to sleep. You have family, you have friends. Every single one of those is a miracle. And what's the proof? Simple as proof. 1 million people didn't get out of bed this morning. You know why? They died. By definition, if you're watching or listening, you didn't. Therefore, you have an obligation to live life to the full, to live exuberantly. Let me tell you a quick story. It's about me. Imagine, if you can, I'm standing up in the morning, completely hale and hearty, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. And that evening, I'm in the hospital, totally, completely paralyzed, my neck down. And it was not from an automobile accident. It wasn't a spinal injury. It was a rare disease, which I never heard of the day before, took over my body and rendered me a quadriplegic. Nothing in the body moved from the neck down. I could only communicate by blinking my eyes. I was 144 days in the hospital. 2 years in a hospital bed in my own home, I couldn't move. 4 years in a wheelchair. I had braces on both my legs, my hips to my ankles for years, and that was progress. Thank God today I'm able to be vertical and ambulatory with the help of a 7-foot walking wand. So I'm a triped, not a biped. Can't walk up a stair by myself. I can't walk up a curb by myself. I have help 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But you hear my voice. Positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, all because of one word. Smile. Seeing miracles in life every day. But I got to tell you a story. My 8-year-old niece comes over to me a few weeks ago. She says, Uncle Barry, can we spell smile S-M-I-E-L? I thought about it. Smile sounds the same. Why not? I asked her, how come? She says, because then it would stand for seeing miracles in everyday life. out of the mouth of an 8-year-old. But what was she doing? She was creating the kind of world that she wants to live in. Now, CREATE is a fabulous acronym that stands for causing, rethinking, enabling all to excel. And that's what you're going to experience today with wonderful Alexander McCobin. Shifting your perspective. Now, I can tell you, I've been working with people for more than 4.5 decades, and I work with high-achieving people. And 97% of them, when they come to me, first time they speak to me, they unfortunately drop the F in shift, and the other stuff happens. So you got to keep your F's in place. You want to be able to shift your perspective just a little bit, and then you can open up and learn the 6 most important words you'll ever utilize, internalize, and leverage. These are choice, not chance, determines your destiny. How you choose to respond in any given situation will determine the pathway and the trajectory of your life. Now, before we bring on wonderful, amazing Alexander, I want to warn everybody, and him included, that I do use a lot of 4-letter words. I even use the 4-letter FU word because of the shock value, and it's fun. Now, the 4-letter words that we use, because we live in the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, are love, life, hope, free, play, pray, swim. And the 4-letter FU word, of course, is fun. Fun, yes, F-U, capital N, capital N. So right away, there's some people in the audience say, hey, Barry Shore, fun's only spelled with 3 letters. Not in our world. The world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant. Fun is spelled F-U, capital N, capital N. So after the show, when you see your family and friends, you have a twinkle in your eye, you have a smile on your face, point your finger and say, F-U, everybody. And add right away, capital N, capital A, and say, where'd you get that? So I listened to Barry Shore, and now you got their attention, and now you can intentionally speak with them about the transformational processes that we're going to be discussing today with wonderful Alexander. Before we bring him on, I'm just going to urge everybody to do 2 things. Number 1, share this with 5 people. You want to share with 50 people, 100, that's great. But share with at least 5 people. That way we'll touch over 2 million people around the world, because this is valuable, what's going to be shared with you today. And number 2 is I want everybody to utilize the 2 most important words in the English language, 2 most powerful words in the English language, 3 times a day, consciously and conscientiously, now the rest of your life, because it will make you happier, healthier, and wealthier. These 2 words are thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and nurture kindness. To harmonize and nurture kindness. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Therefore, be kind always. Kind is a fabulous acronym that stands for keep inspiring noble deeds. I can't think of anyone that inspires noble deeds more than the wonderful, indomitable, fabulous, inspirational Alexander McCobin. Alexander, please say hello to 411,922 people around the world.
Well, first off, Barry, I got to say hello to you again. I am so honored to be on this podcast with you, to have this conversation, and so excited to be sharing all of these incredible insights from you, even more than me, with everyone here. I so appreciate what you're doing, the message that you put out there at the start of this and with all of your other episodes, and just who you are day in and day out.
Alexander, you can cash the check. That is just, that is so humbling. Everybody, if I start telling you all the things that Alexander has done and is doing, it would take the rest of the show. But I'm going to give you 3 highlights. Number 1, and how we met, he was the CEO of a remarkably important organization called Conscious Capitalism. And yes, it's not a contradiction in term. Conscious Capitalism, he was the CEO. He was also, by the way, the president of a remarkably wondrous group called Students for Liberty. Yes, just like it sounds, Students for Liberty. Before that, though, he was on a pathway, and he is really a philosophy person. He receives a BA and MA at the University of Pennsylvania and from Georgetown in philosophy. That's the exact way that you get in business, the perfect way, because now you can combine the mind and the heart together. And he's now started up a remarkably important organization, which touches the world, by the way, called Liberty Ventures. We're going to talk about that as well. So Alexander doesn't live in a home, even though he has an ancestral family home. And yes, the behind him are real books and a real bookcase and a library. But he basically lives out of 2 suitcases because he travels, because he's dedicated to helping the world. So Alexander, let's just jump right in and say again, a huge thank you for being here. And let's just start right away with something that is germane to this very time. Usually I don't tell the date, but I'm going to do in this case. This is August of the year 2024. People will be watching this, God willing, a century from now, and maybe more. This is a critical year in American history and politics, and therefore in the United States, not just for our country, but globally. And the United States is a country that is founded on values and principles. And one of those is independence and the ability to be out there and work in what we call a capitalist environment, which is the greatest, most beneficial source of happiness for the world that has ever been constructed. So let's just dive right in, because it's controversial. It shouldn't be, but it's controversial, right, Alexander? So why should capitalists support capitalism, which it seems that they're not?
Sadly, you're right, Barry. Too few capitalists even understand what the system of capitalism really means, and that prevents them from living up to the ideals and principles behind capitalism. And even if they do understand it, there's so much pressure and opposition to the term itself, perhaps even more than to what the principles of capitalism really are, that lead them to be scared to speak out about this or to really embrace the concept of capitalism. But what you said is absolutely correct. The prosperity humanity is benefiting from today has come from the advent of the concept of capitalism 250 years ago. The idea that there can be a voluntary system of production and trade between individuals for mutual benefit, which is the basis of capitalism. And to keep in mind, this was a revolutionary idea at one point. Before capitalism, it was feudalism, it was mercantilism, it was controlled economies. And the idea that people could choose what they were going to produce, who they were going to trade with, and couldn't be forced into those trades was revolutionary. And to understand the power of this, let's go back to Adam Smith, the father of the concept of capitalism. And remember that before he was an economist, over a decade before he wrote The Wealth of Nations, he was a moral philosopher. He wrote a book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, that provided the ideological foundation for capitalism to be developed, which explains that humans are fundamentally moral beings. There is a code of ethics for how we can, should, and naturally do engage one another. And capitalism is the greatest expression of that by recognizing the basic dignity of every individual, the importance of voluntary relationships with one another, and the equality of opportunity, the equality of who we are as people that capitalism establishes. So what really drives me today is a purpose of helping more capitalists understand those great principles and ideals of capitalism so they can be the best representatives of that, the best advocates of it, and the best collaborators in it in order to keep advancing human prosperity, as well as creating opportunities for other people to participate in the system and push us forward in ways that we can't even imagine right now.
So first of all, as I mentioned, Alexander has degrees in philosophy, and he's a teacher. And you can hear that because what he just gave us in a concise, compelling, clear explanation of what capitalism. I urge everybody, don't take notes. Just lean in and experience. Everything you want to know about Alexander and what he's doing is going to be in the show notes. So just go to barryshore.com. You don't have to remember anything. I urge you, you're going to want to hear what he just said again and again and again. You're going to share this with at least 5 people. I'm going to unpack a few words that you use because they're so critical to what's going on. Because capitalism, as just the idea, the expression, the word, is under attack by people who have benefited from the system and yet like to work in perversity. Now, I'm using that term, not you. Like to work in perversity. And what is the perversity of capitalism? It's something that they call, in a mild way, socialism, which is really the advent of communism and goes against all of the tenets that you just expressed. Let's use three of them. Number one, the idea of value and principles. Number two, no coercion, voluntary trade with other people, and the ability to have equality of opportunity. Those three pillars do not exist in any other country in the world and any other system in the history of the world going back for thousands and thousands of years. As you said, it's a very modern process, a few hundred years, and yet under attack by the very people who have benefited the most, people who you would think would know better. So let's unpack it and go to the heart of the issue. What do these people really accuse capitalists of? Let's use the G word. Ready? Greed. So Alexander, how does one deal with this canard that greed is an essence of capitalism?
So I think you're hitting the nail on the head here, Barry. Most people think that capitalism is fundamentally about greed and that it benefits the few at the expense of the many. And there are a litany of other objections made against it. And there are really two reasons for this that we have to address. The first is some of the biggest proponents of capitalism have made that argument themselves, I think, to the detriment of capitalism itself. If you think back to Ayn Rand, who I admittedly am a big fan of, but I think that she got some things really wrong. Her book, The Virtue of Selfishness, does not make a compelling case for most people for why they ought to support capitalism. And when you watch movies like Wall Street and you hear greed is good, there are people who have said that, but that's the wrong way to defend or even understand capitalism. This is one of the things that, going the wrong way, that conscious capitalism got so right in explaining that it's fundamentally about creating more value for everyone. That's the right way to understand capitalism. So it's not about greed. There is a sense of self-interest in that we're looking for win-win-win opportunities where everyone benefits, which includes ourselves, but it's not the benefit of the self at the expense of others. So we need better arguments and better advocates for capitalism, first off.
On the, like, use that as a springboard. On the contrary, it is the enlightened self-interest is the greatest motivator for success for everybody. So I was raised by a very wise father who taught me these three letters. He called it FBC. He said the essence of America and the American economy is FBC. What is that? Faster, better, cheaper. Whenever you engage in commerce, if you can do something that is all three, by definition, you will win. It's not even possible to not win. If you can do something that's faster and better, and it may not be cheaper. Example, iPhone. Okay. It doesn't have to be cheaper. And if you could do something that is better and cheaper, it may not be faster, you will win. So you have exponents of this, but this can only flourish in a system that is not coercive, because the opposite part of the coin that says greed on one side, which people call capitalism, is the other side of the coin called power, which is the essence of what socialism or communism is. Is that not correct? That they're driven by power, the state.
100%. And that's starting to get to the second problem that we have, that not everyone who is in business, not every business person is actually a proponent of capitalism or likes capitalism or even really an expression of it, because capitalism is based on voluntary trade and an exchange of goods and services that create value for one another. And there are lots of people in business who commit fraud, who are not developing things that are better, faster, cheaper. They're developing things that are worse, that are slower, that are more expensive, and they are engaged in exploitation. And that's what critics of capitalism point to as representative of capitalism, rather than recognizing these are the exceptions. These are people who are abusing and misusing the system. And that's why we need more business leaders who are real capitalists, who understand the principles, to come out and share their stories, to explain why they make decisions the way they do, to explain their process of creating value for others, humanize what business and capitalism really is for other people to understand that, to make a connection to it beyond the theoretical arguments, but then also be willing to connect their individual stories and work with that larger system. That's what
Wait a
we
minute.
need.
On that high note, humanize stories, real people. We're going to go to a brief commercial. And by the way, we would not have these people on our show who love us and support us if we didn't think they're worthy of your time and attention. So we urge you to consider doing that. We'll be right back with more Alexander and this amazing insight from somebody who really knows what he's talking about right after this brief message. Don't go away. We Americans take about 20,000 breaths every day, and we spend an average of 90% of our time indoors. Now, the indoor air that we breathe can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air. That's according to the Environmental Protection Agency. Indoor air pollutants can cause respiratory systems like sneezing, congestion, scratchy throat, and even more serious health problems like lung and heart disease. So what's the solution? Is there a solution? The answer is yes. I'm here to tell you about Air Doctor, the air purifier that helps filter out 99.99% of dangerous contaminants so your lungs don't have to. This includes allergens, pollen, pet dander, dust mites, mold spores, and even bacteria and viruses. I'm going to make a confession. I use it and we love it. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you don't love it? Just send it back for a refund minus the shipping. Go to airdoctorpro.com. Use the promo code JOY, J-O-Y, and you'll receive up to $300 off air purifiers. Exclusive to my podcast listeners, you will also receive a free 3-year warranty in any unit. That's an additional $84 value. So go and get this special offer now. Go to airdoctorpro.com, 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 and use the promo code JOY, J-O-Y. You will thank me. Bye now. Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Maybe good looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. Our cup runneth over with good. His name is Alexander McCobin, and he is not just a spokesperson for capitalism. He is an essential aspect of capitalism because he practices it both from his mind and his heart, and he puts his money where his mouth is. So we just left everybody with some remarkably important information and inspiration. Now we're talking about the T word, transformation. So Alexander, you mentioned about the ability to humanize, and that the fraudsters and the wicked people who try to take advantage of it, that's always going to happen because they're greedy individuals. It's not the capitalist way. But you mentioned about people humanizing. Can you name drop and give us, let's say, 2 people even, and some of their stories that show the expression of real capitalism and what it can do for the world?
So, I mean, I have to mention John Mackey, the founder of Whole Foods and one of the authors of Conscious Capitalism, because he has such an incredible story where he wasn't a capitalist himself when he started out when he was younger. He was living in a commune, focused on healthy living, but then decided he wanted to start his own grocery store to provide healthy food options for other people. And as he built Whole Foods, he started to realize the challenges of running a business, the importance of free markets, and became one of its greatest advocates while developing an entire new industry that didn't exist before, basically organic, natural foods that, of course, existed to a certain extent, but he popularized, and I dare say, actually led to healthier eating, healthier habits for Americans in ways that most people don't appreciate. And people are able to connect with. And so I do recommend people read Conscious Capitalism as an illustration of this.
So let me mention something, because I had the great honor of being with you and Raj, also Raj Sisodia, another author of Conscious Capitalism, and John Mackey in Dallas a few years ago. And I come from a place called Brookline, Massachusetts, or Boston, Massachusetts. And Boston is known for many, many things. Now it's anti-capitalist, but back in the days, it's a great place for people with ideals and such. And there was a food chain, healthy organic food called Air One. Now this goes back 50 plus years. Air One was the leader. They started the whole process. And John's business, Whole Foods, was small. They were competitors. And eventually, I asked him this question. John's Whole Foods bought Air One. I asked him, how come Air One didn't make it and you did? And he laughed, and he looked at me and he said, Barry, one word, profit. Now, he wasn't calling himself a prophet, Prophet. He was talking about Profit. He said, I learned that profit is not an evil word. They didn't. And what I want to emphasize what you just said. Not only did he embrace the idea of profit, recognizing that it would help grow Whole Foods, but it grew an industry that helps every single human being who is involved with Whole Foods and the extensions and the competitors. That's the genius of this. Whole Foods is not by itself. It's not a monopoly. It has competitors. Everybody wins. The rising tide lifts all boats. So when you embrace it and understand the benefits of it, it's like Archimedes. He's talking about philosophy. Archimedes, great. Everybody should look it up. He said, give me a fulcrum and a lever and I'll move the world, right? That's what happens when you do things from the point of view, what's the best? What can I do that is better and faster? And okay, Whole Foods not cheaper. It doesn't matter. It's the ability to make things ubiquitous because everybody wins. Okay, that's one great example. Right.
Well, let me build on that, because the Olympics just ended. And we always talk about how athletes today run faster, they lift heavier, they accomplish so much more than athletes 150, even 25 years ago, because the bar keeps getting raised. And when people realize there is a new way of doing things, a better way of doing things, it doesn't remain with that individual athlete, it spreads to others. And that's what we saw with the natural food space. Whole Foods doesn't distribute the most natural foods anymore. Walmart does. And it's not because Walmart came up with that idea. They saw there was a market opportunity thanks to Whole Foods largely and started to copy it. So that is a great example of how the system actually spreads the best ideas and opportunities when competitors in different companies see there is a market opportunity for them here.
And that only exists with the other C. See, conscious capitalism, there's a C hidden between the two words, competition. Competition is, as my father taught me, he said it's called co-opetition. Sometimes you compete, sometimes you collaborate. It depends on what's happening in the marketplace. That only can exist in an open, free marketplace where everybody is out there to do the best they can. You just mentioned the Olympics. Hello, you're right. Talk about times and breaking records. It is truly mind expanding. And that's what happens in the capitalist world. And you, by the way, go and talk about this. We have two remarkable opportunities in the world today. Put the United States in a special place by itself because we are a unique nation. However, look what we have spawned. There are two great competitors in the United States. One is called China, and we're not afraid to say communist China. And the other is India. India shifted away from socialism, where it was mired for decades, and broke out into a capitalist modality. And guess what's happening? It's the most populous country in the world, and it has right now and growing the largest middle class in the world. And the battle between China and India is really the battle for the future of the world, in my humble opinion, in terms of business. And I think I know who the winner is going to be. And no matter what's going to happen, and it all comes from what you just talked about, conscious capitalism. So can you give another example of a person that has been able to humanize that essence of what capitalism, what I call the happier warriors?
100%. So Another great business person that maybe isn't in the newspapers as much, but doing incredible things is Victor Cho. He's the former CEO of evite.com and did incredible things there, helping people actively connect with each other and develop meaningful relationships through that business. But now he's in the entrepreneurial mode. He's building up a new company, Emovid, that's taking the idea that we should be able to have video communication asynchronously with each other to humanize relationships, have communication structures, not just by written text or voice notes, but where we see each other and we're able to emotionally connect with each other without having to be on a call, that I think is absolutely amazing. And this is the kind of thing that we saw on Star Trek back in the 60s and hasn't been brought to life yet, but he's working on right now that I just so appreciate and love. And is an example of business developing new technologies, humanizing experiences for us, and helping us develop deeper relationships with other people.
Where is Victor located?
He's out in Northern California, as you might expect.
Okay, and where is he from originally, either himself or his family?
I'm not sure. He might be from Northern California originally, but I'm not sure of that.
Well, the only reason I mention is because I've been in business for most of my life, since the time of 9 years old, and I can tell you about a place called Hong Kong. Hong Kong, until 15 years ago when it was, or 20 years ago when it was turned back to the Chinese, the communist Chinese, was one of the most free trading places on the planet. It was a place of almost unbridled capitalism in the most positive sense, by the way. Of course, there's always people, outliers, who will take advantage of anything. That's just the nature of life. However, Hong Kong was this remarkable place, very small, and like Holland of 300 years ago, just bristling with people that are thinking and doing and planning. Today, closed. That's what communism does. Everything else expands the consciousness. And that's the genius of capitalism, isn't it? So based on everything we're talking about, because we are upbeat, we know what we're talking about. We know we could debate against any other one or two people who are on the other side and say, yeah, but, and we'll say, yeah, and go, and we will win hearts and minds because we deal with both facts and emotion. I love this idea of humanizing. So why is it that seasoned business leaders don't support entrepreneurs as much as they should? What seems to be going on has politics infected the water, and when they drink it, like the Kool-Aid, something goes wrong?
So that's one of the reasons I think that's absolutely correct. It's some business leaders are trained up in systems to be bureaucrats more than entrepreneurs or value creators. That's the nature of some big corporate structures, unfortunately. It doesn't have to be, but for some it is. For others, they misunderstand what capitalism is all about. They do think it's about making a quick buck and benefiting themselves any way they can, and so they're not really principled in business or living up to the ideals of capitalism. But I think it's also the case that some of them are just so focused on their individual business that they get blinders on. They miss the bigger picture of what actually leads to a more successful system in which their business is able to operate. And so the importance of supporting other entrepreneurs, finding collaborative opportunities, and talking out not only about their individual business, but about capitalism as a structure itself. But lastly, I think it's also that for a lot of them feel alone. Running a business is really, really challenging. It can be very isolating. And if business leaders don't actively work to form the right networks, to be around the right peers who are encouraging them to do this, it falls by the wayside. And that's the reason why I'm so passionate about building this movement of capitalists living up to the ideals of capitalism. When I do mean movement, I mean being in relationship with each other, forming collaborations with each other, finding new opportunities and developing new initiatives together so they don't feel like they're alone and they know there are other people working on this with them.
Let's use the M word again. Movement. So you mentioned about Victor and his new venture, which is called Emovid. Mm-hmm. I guess emotional video, something like that.
There you go.
Okay. And it is, in my humble opinion, the true function of business. I'll mention my father again, and you mentioned your father at the beginning when we talked offline. So when I was 9 years old and I learned my first foray into entrepreneurship, grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts. We had snowstorms, and thank God they call out school every once in a while. And when they call out school, we said, "Yay!" So what do? Some people go back to sleep. Some people play games. I bundled up, went out and shoveled snow, driveways and walks and such like that. I got 25 cents allowance a week for doing work. And in one day I made $55, 9 years old. And that was, those 6, it was big. I worked all day, didn't even stop for lunch. I came back at about 5:20. It was almost dark out because it's Massachusetts in the wintertime. And my father made me a beautiful cup of hot chocolate, sits down and he says to me, "My dear beloved son," which he liked to say, "how do you spell business?" Okay, I'm 9 years, I know. Business. He said, "That's right. Notice that the U comes before the I. When you are out there making sure that the you is taken care of, all of your clients and people you work with and the people that you hire and do other things, the I will always be taken care of. It's a law. You don't have to worry." That was at 9 years. Okay, it took me 2 decades to internalize it. The reason I mentioned it is because it's what you just said. The ability to recognize opportunity, to collaborate, to have a movement of like-minded people who are here to say, yes, we can be of benefit. We're the tip of the spear. We're the light. As Ronald Reagan says, we're that shining light on the hill. So let's talk about what Liberty Ventures does and why you ventured into this whole world about liberty. What is it about liberty that animates you, Alexander?
Well, it's everything we've been talking about. That liberty really is both the most moral principle for human interaction, respecting the dignity of one another, engaging in that voluntary trade, not just in capitalism and economic activity, but everything that we do, and gives each of us the opportunity to define our own purpose in life and respect the purposes of others. But what we're doing with Liberty Ventures now, or what I'm doing and the rest of the team and this network that we've built out is doing, is taking the next step with the idea that we not only need to advance the principles of liberty theoretically, and we don't just need capitalists who are going to argue for the ideals of capitalism, we need to support capitalists in actually building businesses based on these ideals and working with others who share those same values, because like-valued business leaders want to work with each other. It's easier to establish trust. It's easier to understand what their goals are and to align on mutual objectives. And so what Liberty Ventures now does is provide a platform for business leaders who share these values to not only meet each other, but really start to do business together, whether that's investing or coming in and helping companies scale or recruiting values-aligned talent or finding other opportunities to come up with their own initiatives together. But that's the next step we need to take, to go from talking about these ideas to actually putting them into practice in businesses.
So let's unpack again. I'm urging everybody, don't take notes, but do the following. Just lean in and experience this, because this is majestic. I'm saying it. This is a majestic movement. And I urge you, share it with 5 people. What I really want you to do is listen now, go back with the recording, listen again. And yes, then you can take notes. And then the real benefit to you, listen the 3rd time. Because when you do that the 3rd time, now it's inside of you. Because Alexander just mentioned the most important letter in the alphabet, in my humble opinion, at this point in time. It's the T letter. T stands for transformation. You're getting a lot of information. You're getting inspiration. It's really about T, transformation. Transformation happens based on underlying foundation called trust. That's what Alexander just meant. Liberty Ventures. Liberty, the word liberty itself can't exist in the vocabulary of socialists, of communists, of autocrats. It's a contradiction in terms. It doesn't exist. The American Revolution started with the Sons of Liberty. It's in Brooklyn, Boston, Massachusetts. It's the true foundation of working together and open and using principles and values, trust. And when you do that, and everything can be done with a handshake, eyeball to eyeball, humanizing. It doesn't matter where somebody lives on the planet, and it doesn't matter what background they have. It has nothing to do with anything other than facing forward in principles together. That's the other T word. So I am just so happy. I'd like to mention a person that we didn't mention, but I think you'd agree. Bernie Marcus and his co-founders of a company called Home Depot. Home Depot, to me, is a great expositor of the principles that we're talking about: freedom, liberty, business focusing on the you, on the customer. What can we do to be of service and benefit? And the result is, did everybody who invested in Home Depot in the beginning to become billionaires? Yeah! And they celebrate it, and they're using the money for good. See, that's what I found to be the greatest genius of entrepreneurs who do well, do good in the world. So I'm going to ask you, let's begin the process now before we go to a break in just a minute. How does one run a principled business, Alexander? That seems to be the toughest challenge. Running a business itself is difficult. How do you run a principled business?
So the first step is to really understand what the principles of capitalism are, to recognize that it is based on voluntary exchange, respecting the dignity of every individual, finding opportunities to create value for others, to engage in collaboration, and the list goes on. It's something that we're actually still actively developing as a movement to articulate more clearly. But it'll be represented in different ways in different businesses. But the first starting point that too many business leaders miss out on is to adopt that commitment to understanding and living out the principles of capitalism in their own business. And until they take that first step, they're not going to be able to actually put it into practice.
So it begins with principles, with values, understanding them, speaking about them, learning them, and being in an environment with others who not only espouse those, but practice. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, on that yes, we're going to put you on pause. I don't want to. We have great sponsors that love the show. Remember, this is capitalism. We love it. Great people. Wouldn't have them on if we didn't vet them. We'll be right back with more Alexander, because you don't want to miss a minute of this. Be right back right after this brief message. Don't go away.
What if you could shop at your favorite local stores, swipe your current credit card, and get extra cashback rewards? And what if you could also have donations sent to your favorite cause at no extra cost to you? What if this amazing program was absolutely free and very simple to set up? Well, What If is here. Welcome to Einstein Cares, where your everyday shopping gives you and your favorite cause extra money. It's fast, it's easy, and effortless.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Maybe a good-looking show is looking, finding the good. You found good in abundance. His name is Alexander McCobin. We're learning about, we're growing with the remarkable insights into capitalism. It's a good word. Conscious capitalism is a great word. The values, the principles of running a business so that everybody wins. That is an essential foundation. It's everybody wins in a good, wonderful, growing business environment. And it's nothing to be shied away from. On the contrary, it's something that you want to get involved with. It's a movement, as Alexander says. So we just started the process of running a principled business. As you said, it begins with understanding the principles and the values and associating with people of like mind. Give us one or two other insights into what it means to run a principled business.
So one of the most important things, I think, is to recognize that capitalism was founded to be a system where people have the opportunity to create value, to create new businesses, to help other people out. in ways that may not be expected by others, that's not assigned to them by their birth or class or anything else. And so to lean into that, it's a good thing for us to encourage equality of opportunity, for more opportunities for other people, and recognize and reward those who are creating more value, to encourage more people to do that. And that's not just within the system as a whole, that's within businesses themselves. And here's the thing, this isn't just a moral thing to do, it also is good business as well. Reward people who are creating more value and allow anyone in your company to have access to that opportunity, so that you're not turning away value creators who could actually be making the business more successful.
So let's use the O word, opportunity. So I'm saying this because we have a lot of people, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people listening. I urge you to share those with 5 people, so we'll touch millions. It doesn't matter if you are, in quotation marks, an employee. If you work with a company, think of yourself as an entrepreneur. And if you're an entrepreneur, think of yourself as an entrepreneur and open yourself up to opportunity. There is so much opportunity, especially in today's world. It's not that opportunity is lessening. On the contrary, it's opening up. The real keys, I think, as you've mentioned so well and so clearly, are understanding that it's based on trust, based on principles, and based on shared values. And in a large organization, it's incumbent upon a bureaucratic organization to say, are we too bureaucratic? Let's open up. There's so many people that have ideas. This 19-year-old just came up with this idea. This 58-year-old just came up with this idea. Ideas are not just a dime a dozen. They're to be looked at, evaluated, say yes or no. But it's to look at them and see what happens. Otherwise, you won't have the kind of ongoing growth that we're experiencing. Let's be blunt. AI is a buzzword today. NVIDIA is not a buzzword. It's a breakthrough. And it's only the beginning of what's going to happen. It needs to be based on trust, values, and principles. Okay, and we just have a few more minutes together, wonderful Alexander. Can you articulate for us someone or some business that you think is a hallmark of a principled, successful business?
So we're actually going to be giving an award out at our upcoming New York Principal Business Summit for this very question. Who is a great representative of a principled business leader? And look, there are lots of them out there. John Mackey is a great example. I think Steve Forbes, who's also speaking at the summit, is a great example. Joe Lonsdale from 8VC. There are so many of them. And actually, here's the important thing to note, which may actually hurt us in some ways of building the movement, because I'm not saying that principled business leaders are special. They are, because they're running principled businesses. But there are more principled business leaders out there than people realize, not just those who are in the news, who might be, and which challenges the dominant narrative that they're all evil, greedy, and destructive. But there's so many great principled business leaders who are running smaller businesses or mid-market businesses around the country, who are humble, not seeking public attention, just doing a great job creating value for all their stakeholders while making a profit which supports their shareholders, their owners, and advancing the idea that business is a force for good in the world. We need to uplift more of those stories. And I encourage everyone here to actually go, when you go to a local business, your local grocery store or chain store or coffee shop, don't just think about what you're buying. Think about the owners. Think about the people who are running that business, how complicated it is for them to put it together, and all of the decisions that they're making to provide this opportunity for us as customers, and whether they're doing that in a principled manner or not, and appreciate them, and even think about thanking them for doing that.
Whoa, wait a minute. Remember, we started this whole show about thank. The 2 most important words, most powerful, are thank you, to harmonize and nurture kindness. And one of the most important things that any government can do, if it had brains and a heart, they say they have a heart, but they don't, they have brains, is to unshackle business and allow it to grow, so that the person who has that coffee shop called Starbucks up in Seattle, 1 or 2 places that serve, hey, great coffee, within a decade or so becomes not just a bunch of coffee shops, it becomes a movement. And you wouldn't have a proliferation of coffee shops around the world if it wasn't that Starbucks did something. They took action, they took initiative. And let's give a big shout of yes to Mr. Schultz, who created an empire, but it was an empire of good. That's the essence of what I call capitalism. It's an empire of good. That's what we're here for. And this is what's going to win the war for civilization. There is a war going on. We don't have to fight it with rockets and bullets and people. Win the war is the hearts and minds of people recognize, yes, this is the best way to do things. I can freely choose. Remember, choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Alexander, I'm loath to use these words, but I'm going to say them for the moment. We're coming to a close of our time. I have 3 quick questions for you. Are you ready for 3 quick questions?
Let's do it.
Okay, number 1, will you come back again?
If you're willing to have me, Barry, anytime.
Thank you. Number 2, wonderful Alexander McCobin. You have 80 seconds to answer this question. What is your most fervent desire?
That goes back to my purpose. My desire is for there to be a movement of business leaders who are living up to the ideals of capitalism. But I'll take it beyond that. My desire is for humanity and every individual in humanity to be able to lead a meaningful life. And that starts with people recognizing that they have human dignity and that everyone else does, to respect the liberty of everyone to set their own purposes, to lead their lives as they want, and establish that meaning, which is a really deep and complicated and challenging process, but it's something every human ought to do and ought to be able to. And building the movement of business leaders who recognize that is an incredibly powerful and important step in order for people to lead meaningful lives.
And Alexander will succeed. He was named Alexander for a purpose. He cut the Gordian knot, the entanglements of the human spirit wrapped up in a battle between communism and capitalism. He cut the Gordian knot. Look that up if you don't know it. And he broke through, and he allowed us to have this movement of goodness and opportunity. Thank you. And the third question, may I give you a hug in front of 418,138 people around the world? Let me tell you what HUG stands for. Ready? Heartfelt, unlimited giving. Are you ready for a hug?
Let's do it, Barry. I'll always take a hug.
2, 3. Remember, this show is not about Alexander, as great guy that he is, or Barry Shaw, fabulous fellow. It's about you. Y-O-U. You becoming the best you, because when you're the best you make the world a better place. That's what capitalism is about. You make the world a better place. And then you can utilize the 3 fundamentals of life, which of course are: 1, life has purpose. You lead a purpose-driven life, you go mad, you make a difference. And the 3rd is unpack the power and the sequence of everyday words and terms. And then you'll be happier, healthier, and wealthier. We guarantee it. Example, www. What a wonderful world. Smile, seeing miracles in life every day, as Alexander talks about, miracle of business people working together for the greater good. Or as my 8-year-old niece says, smile, S-M-I-E-L, seeing miracles in everyday life. Create the kind of world you want to live in, causing rethinking, enabling all to excel. I hope today was a shift in your perspective and rethinking, and therefore you can internalize, utilize, and leverage the 6 most important words you'll ever know. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Choice, the essence of capitalism. It allows you to respond in any given way, shows you the path of life and the trajectory. Use 4-letter words. Now, remember the 4-letter words we use because we live in the world that are positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant. Love, life, hope, free, give, play, pray, swim, and tell the world to F you. Capital N, capital A. So what? Yes, get off this and talk to people, have a twinkle in your eye, a smile on your face. Say, F you, everybody. Add capital N, capital N. Say, where'd you get that? I listened to Barry Shaw. He had on Alexander McCobin, and we're talking about how great capitalism is. You say, what? And now you can share with them what's going on. Share stands for spreading happiness, rejuvenating energy. Use the 2 most powerful words in the English language 3 times a day, consciously and conscientiously, for now the rest of your life. And these are thank you, thank you, thank you, to harmonize and nurture kindness, That's the essence of capitalism also, by the way. Kindness, because you're giving of yourself to another being and sharing that which is good, the fruits of your labor. So a blessing from Alexander and Barry. Go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference. Alexander, don't go away.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joy of Living podcast. Now that's another step towards your healthier, happier, and wealthier life. Never hesitate to do good in the world, no matter what the situation. Join us for another upbeat discussion next time at barryshore.com. And be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to the show to get more conversations like this. And remember to share it with your family and friends too. See you on the next episode.